Greetings all! Welcome to another episode of Pen and Paint, the channel where I merge my love of miniature painting with my growing passion for writing. This is the final episode in our Gloomspite Gitz Spearhead series. In previous videos we painted Stabbas, Rockgut Troggoths, and Squighoppers. Today we'll be looking at the on-foot Loonboss, with a special focus on brassy armor and basing details, including mushrooms and critters. Unfortunately, there were some recording issues for the base critters. To ensure that you have a complete guide for the entire spearhead, I painted up the Squig from Mollugh's Mob with the same recipe. For the armor, I decided to try my hand at true metallic metal, and while the results look nice in person, it can be difficult to see in the video. I'm hoping to fix this issue in future videos with a new camera setup in the new year. There's only so much you can do with a webcam. A complete list of all paints used for each material is on screen now. Paints will also be noted as they're used. Video timestamps are available for each step of the painting process. If you'd like to read today's story or listen to it without the video, links to pure text and audio versions are in the video description below. Feel free to mute the video if you're only here for the painting. Today's story is Heavy is the Moon-Shaped Crown. It takes more than a little sneakiness to rule a warren. This story is rated E for everyone. Whizbat Half-Face stood at attention, the one eye he had left watching as the figure clad head to toe in greeny, goldy, silvery metal plates slowly stalked up and down the pens. It bounced the back of its enormous, sickle-shaped axe head off the rope netting that prevented the hoppers from jumping out, checking the tension and springiness. When one of the creatures tried to leap up and make a meal of the armored goblin, the figure cracked it in the head with a mighty wallop. The other hoppers, also growing restless, took the hint and settled down.
"We hasn't been feeding them too much," said
Whizbat nervously.
"Just enough to stop them from getting ornery.
The figure nodded.
Once we knows when the fighting is starting, we'll cut off all the food and fill 'em up with jelly shrooms to make 'em bouncier."
"And the riders, they get jellies too."
The voice was low and contemplative.
"The riders?"
"The riders. A bounce on a bounce. They'll pull up the hoppers instead of pushing them down."
Old Half-Face considered the idea and nodded.
"Yes, that's a pretty good idea."
He could feel the figure's eyes on him from behind the heavy visor.
Of course it's a good idea,"
he said with a fluster.
"A great idea. That's why you're the big boss after all, full of all the bestest notions and such. Ha 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 ha!"
Whizbat's laughter came out forced and strained, and he was relieved that Nitbit appeared oblivious to it.
"Darn it, Whizbat,"
the herder said to himself.
"You's gonna have half a brain to go with that half a face of yours if you don't watch yourself in front of the boss."
"This is good,"
the boss said at length in the same level voice, eyeing the pens and hoppers.
"Thanks, boss."
"But they ain't."
He pointed a gauntleted hand at a boisterous rabble of gobs nearby. As one they turned and, realizing that it was them that Nitbit da Sneaky was upset with, quickly went quiet, shuffling their feet.
"The riders?"
"Put them to work and tire 'em out. We ain't fighting yet, and if they don't settle down, they're gonna do something stupid. Like trying to ride the hoppers early."
Nitbit focused his hidden gaze on the hopper rider's boss.
"You do what our face here says, or I'ma take your hopper away, and you'll be right back to where you was before. You's got that, pillock."
The gob nodded vigorously.
"Good.
He turned back to Whizbat.
Send a tasty hopper to the cook for my dinner tonight. And keep after yourself. If those bouncy gobs over there work hard enough, maybe give 'em a few bites, eh?"
Whizbat grinned and the riders all perked up.
"Will do, boss."
Nitbit nodded, turning away from the herder, hoppers, and rambunctious goblins and headed out.
"You's heard the big boss, ya mangy gobs. Grab them shovels. You's all mucking out the spare pens."
The riders' delight at the prospect of a well-seasoned roast evaporated with the realization they'd have to work for it.
"These are quite the pokey sticks, Pep. Quite the pokey sticks."
There was a banging and a hammering and a yelling all about them. Goblins were pounding blades on anvils, running back and forth between small forges and scrap piles. A half-dozen gobs with bellows kept the air turning enough that the smell and smoke of peat-shroomed fires didn't smother out the entire works. Beps gave a sharp, curt nod.
Course they are. What do you expect me to make, Nitty? Unpokey poking sticks?
The weaponsmith, a stocky goblin nearly as wide as he was tall, was a curmudgeonly old gob with a perpetual scowl that was only happy when he was miserable. Beps was also the only goblin in the entire warren that didn't give a single tootin' shroom about the big boss. Not because he had a particular dislike for Nitbit, or because he had ambitions of his own for the post. Brassy Armour was one of the oldest goblins in the warren, having survived 3 big bosses before Nitbit, multiple marches mighty and otherwise, and countless bouts of uprisings and infighting. He had outlived enough self-important gobs, seen enough of them get themselves killed in their foolery, to no longer pay them much heed. So long as they left him alone to work at his craft, Beps simply didn't care.
What would we use unpokey poking sticks for, Beps?
From any other goblin, Beps would have taken such a statement as having a laugh at his expense. He would have scowled angrily before heading back to the forge and abandoning the aggravating gob, regardless of who they were. But this was Nitbit, and Nitbit never made fun at anyone's expense. He was too sneaky for that. Beps scowled nevertheless, this time in concentration.
I don't know. I got to think on that for a bit. I've never considered making a stick less pokey before.
The big boss nodded, looking around at the armory.
There ain't many shields. There ain't much wood lying around. The winds didn't blow anything down the chasms this year. At least, nothing nearby. And it ain't the wet season yet, so the reeds ain't grown in either.
Nitbit looked up reflexively to the armory ceiling. Beps, knowing exactly what the big boss was thinking, shook his head.
I don't think we wants to make trouble with them right now, do you? We might get a few trees from the surface, but then they might get wise to what we're up to. Yous don't want to fight a war on 2 fronts, Nitty. At least not without more gobs and sticks. Was that boss Acady?
Nitbit was still staring up, imagining all the trees and the boards they could make of them.
Yep, that was an awfully short march, that was.
The big boss turned back to the loud, noxious room.
We got to have more shields, Beps. We got a lot of gobs, but the raddies has even more. Even if they is just raddies. There ain't enough wood, I heard ya. There's never enough wood. Every march was short. If we ever want to crump these raddies for good, we got to solve this issue.
Beps eyed the big boss as the latter surveyed the chaos about them, hesitant to say anything. Normally he'd wait until he had worked the problem out proper, then show whoever was boss at the time. But Nitbit seemed like a different sort of gob. And it wasn't just because he was so darn sneaky. There was something else going on with the goblin that intrigued Beps, made him almost optimistic.
I might have something to help with that.
Beps shuffled his feet. Nitbit turned to him.
Oh? Yeah.
He fidgeted a bit more before yelling at an important-looking goblin with a scrap of blue cloth tied about his neck.
Jit! Oi, Jit!
The goblin looked around and spied Beps, put down a bundle of scrap and came over.
Yes, boss?
Go get the Prody shield.
Jit glanced at the big boss, eyes wide. The nervous greenskin put a hand to his mouth and whispered fiercely into Beps' ear.
The produce shield ain't ready, boss. We ain't sorted out the kinks yet.
Oh no, just get it, Jit.
The goblin scampered off and returned a few moments later carrying a large, flat, round disc that looked like a giant flattened mushroom cap. Which is exactly what it was.
Take a look there, Nitty.
Beps motioned to Jit, who held out the disc. Nitbit took it and turned it about.
What's this? Something Jit and I have been working on.
The assistant gob perked up, pleased as punch that his boss included him in the project.
Figured that if there ain't ever enough wood and rushes for shields, we should look for something else to make them out of. A dried up shroom shield.
Beps could feel the big boss frown from behind his helmet's faceplate.
I don't think this is gonna stop a stabber. Even a ratty stabber. Maybe. Maybe not. Why don't you give it a go?
said Beps, taking the shield from Nitbit and handing it to Jit.
See for yourself.
Nitbit shrugged and drew a short, pretty dagger from his waist. Jit yelped and stuck out both arms to hold the shield as far away from himself as he could. The big boss stabbed the middle of the shield. There came a loud squeak as the blade slid through the stiff, foam-like material with ease.
That's not very impressive, Beps. It might look like a shield, but a shroom's a shroom.
Nitbit tried to pull out his dagger and found he couldn't. He yanked on the handle, nearly pulling Jit off his feet.
The heck?
The big boss pulled and yanked, wiggled and jiggled the blade. Try as he might, his dagger wouldn't budge. Huffing and puffing with the effort, he stepped back.
That ain't no ordinary shroom, Beps. Nope, it ain't, Nitty.
The solidly built little goblin said with a smile.
We figured out a laminating approach. Dried and flattened a pair of big old shade caps with a heated press, then stuck them together with some rendered hopper glue. Anything that gets stuck in the Prody shield stays stuck.
Nitbit was quiet for a spell.
How many of these do you have?
This was the awkward part.
Just the one. Just this.
Nitbit asked, surprised.
Yep, there's one or two things we gotta sort out with it first before we can make more.
Beps grabbed a big bucket of quenching water and tossed the contents at Jit, who squawked and pulled up the shield. Almost instantly, the Prody shield slipped up all the water covering it, and, rapidly expanding in size and weight, became too awkward for Jit to hold on to. The goblin dropped the shield, which continued to absorb water that pooled on the ground. Nitbit was more than a little impressed. He stepped over to the squishy mass of shrooms and tried to pull his dagger out once again. It slipped out easily.
I thinks I sees the problems, Beps.
The armorer nodded.
I figure we had them sorted out by the next march. The next march, eh? Yeah. Before he exploded, I asked Bugwit about the shade caps, and the Shrewmancer said they were quick and easy to grow. Figured if we start tending a grove of them when we're done scrapping with the raddies, me and Jit have worked out the issues to make lots of shields by the time they're ready to harvest.
Nitbit considered the comment.
You don't think we's gonna scrag all the raddies this time, do you, Beps?
It was Beps' turn to shrug.
Only the belligerent moon knows that.
Big Boss Nitbit gave one last look around the armory before sheathing his dagger.
You're doing a good job, Beps. You too, Jit.
He said to the anxious goblin, who instantly perked up.
If you two survive this march, I'll make sure you get your garden. Until then, keep the forges going.
And with that, Nitbit turned on his heel and strode out of the forge works. Beps looked after the armored goblin, scratching his face in thought.
That's quite an interesting gob, wouldn't you say, Jit?
His assistant nodded.
He's a sneaky one, I'll give you that.
Blinking himself back to the present, Beps wheeled about and motioned to the forges.
Alright, that's enough gawking. Back to work, Jit. This march ain't gonna win itself.
Yes, boss.
Chuckett spread his legs apart as a sizable piece of white stone broke off the working face and plummeted between them to the ground far below. Some gob yelled up to watch where he was tossing things, but the goblin didn't hear. He'd stuffed his ears with a pair of wax-knob shrooms to protect his sensitive hearing from the loud, sharp banging of hammer and chisel. And even if he could have heard the surly cries, what was it to him if some sorry gob got his head knocked in? Anybody silly enough to walk under an active work site was too silly to take safety lessons from. Chuckett paused to scratch himself with the chisel handle as he leaned back to survey his work, gripping one of the suspension ropes so he didn't fall off. There were more than a dozen artisans working the massive slab of dwarven marble. Each sat on a plank swing, a safety line wrapped around their waists and knotted about the wood. All were naked save for shorts, a bandolier to hold their tools, and a waterskin. They were a dirty bunch, even for goblins. The dust from their hammering caked to their scrawny, sweaty bodies as they chipped away at the facade. The swing ropes were hitched at the slab's tippy top, where a trio of strong-armed goblins kept a careful watch on the lines. When an arty gob finished at one particular spot, they gave a holler and yanked on the rope. The goblins at the top would then reposition the artisan, hauling the swing to the side or raising or lowering it incrementally until the gob gave the okay to stop. The work was coming along nicely. The broad crescent of the belligerent moon was roughed in, and already Chuckit could feel the subtle presence of the effigy. Even without the great ogly weird stone eyes, the massive shrine was pooling power. Upon its completion, which the Artigob figured was still a few days away, every goblin within a mile would feel the surging, manic aura of delirious might that pulsed from it, urging them onwards and filling them with a sense of invincibility. Even beyond that distance, goblins would sense it. The shrine acted as a beacon of sorts. In the maze of chasms and tunnels that would soon be their battlefield, the effigy functioned as a fixed point, allowing gobs to navigate by the sickly green, itchy feel that tickled their brains. For a time, at least. Even an effigy carved into dwarvish stone would crack, crumble, and, eventually, explode in a mighty shower of sharp rocks and green lightning under the immense power it drew into itself. Chuckit wiped his sweaty, crusty face with the back of an even sweatier, crustier hand. Inspecting the stone closely and noting its fine mineral veins, he suspected this particular shrine was going to blow up quite spectacularly. The gob made a mental note to not be near it when it did. The hammering around Chuckit had slowed to a stop. He peeked around at the others, then followed their gaze down. His eyes grew wide. There was no mistaking the figure in its mighty armor. It was Nitbit. The big boss himself was standing below, head swinging from side to side as he took in the work Chuckit and his fellows were doing. After a few heart-stopping moments, the resplendent goblin extended a gauntleted hand and gave a thumbs up. The Artigobs let loose a collective sigh of relief. Nitbit turned and strode off, disappearing around the bend. With broad grins and hope in their hearts, Chuckit and the rest of the Artigobs redoubled their efforts. Nitbit rapped sharply against the side of the cave's small opening with the toe of his armored foot, loud enough to be heard from anyone inside, but not enough for the guards stationed well to his rear and out of sight. He gave time for the shuffling from within to die down before pulling back the elegant green curtain with its large crown and gold thread and stepping through. The heavy fabric swayed back to cover the opening. The big boss glanced nervously around the hollow, eyeing the shadows that pooled at the edges of the glow shroom's reach. Nitbit's personal chamber was large, its low ceiling squishing it outwards. A trio of fine, long tables, each with a pair of plush chairs, sat against the walls. A dozen cushions were scattered about, as were chests of various sizes and designs. A large silver platter, half filled with fine morsels of hopper and other nether creatures, lay next to a silver pitcher of the best fungal brew the Warren had to offer. The spoils of war and thievery, the special purviews of the powerful. Nitbit creeped across the chamber, checking the second entrance at the end of a long corridor. He checked the secret exit as well. Then the really secret exit. The coast was clear. The big boss grabbed the sides of his helmet and pulled it off, being careful not to get his ears stuck.
It's okay, yous guys. There ain't any other gobby but me.
The lid of a chest eased open to reveal a pair of beady eyes. A blue and yellow tapestry of the belligerent moon was pulled aside to reveal a long nose. A carpet beneath one of the long tables lifted to reveal a hole from which protruded two pointy ears.
Yeah, what's the situation out there?
Said the goblin in the chest as he clambered out.
Dropper pen's looking good? Yep.
Nitbit said with a nod, pulling off his gauntlets.
Doppers is fine. The crazy gobs that plan on riding them, however, is getting rambunctious.
The goblin from behind the tapestry came over to help with the armor's cuirass.
I don't blame 'em. I'd be itching to go too if I got to ride a hopper. What about the effigy?
Nitbit considered the question as he wiggled out.
Coming along, I thinks. Bit slow though. The arty gobs are all perfectionists.
The tapestry goblin nodded.
Yeah, but that's not a bad thing, is it? If the effigy ain't perfect, the belligerent moon might take offense and blow up early. I ain't gonna take too kindly looking at an ugly sculpture of his face. That's true,
said the goblin from the chest.
I know if an I saw.
There came a sharp rap at the entrance. Without a word, the goblin from the chest turned on the spot and dove back in, the lid slamming down. The gob under the table, still trying to scramble out of the hole, fell back in with a flump, the carpet settling down over him. The tapestry gob, still holding the cuirass, spun around to face away from the door. Nitbit only barely managed to pull down his helmet, stifling a yelp as he caught his ear, when one of his guards burst into the room.
Boss! Boss!
The goblin in boiled leather armor clamored.
They caught one, boss! The sentries caught one!
The tapestry goblin started shuffling towards a long table, as if burdened by the heavy armor, face still turned away. The guard ignored the big boss's attendant. In a deep voice he hoped would cover the panic and adrenaline racing through him, Nitbit asked,
Caught one of what? A spy! They caught one of them ratty spies!
The guard looked around as if relating the news to a room full of goblins, which he was, though he didn't know it. The tapestry goblin paid no heed.
A ratty spy?
Nitbit stroked his chin through the shiny metal of his helmet.
That's not nothing.
The guard nodded vigorously.
Ain't nothing, it sure is! He's still kicking.
The guard shrugged.
I'll be out shortly.
The guard turned to go.
Oi!
The exiting goblin looked back, smiling. Nitbit lowered his voice even more with what he hoped was a healthy dose of menace.
The next time yous, or any other gob barges in this room without an invitation, is getting sent straight to the front lines, and they ain't gonna have a stabber with 'em.
The guard's face blanched.
I don't care if the whole ratty army is clamouring and screeching at the door. You show the proper respect and wait till I says you can come in. Understand?
The guard gulped and nodded before turning tail lest the big boss decide to hit him with more than just words. When the frightened gob had disappeared and he was sure they were alone again, the tapestry goblin dropped the cuirass on the table with a heavy thump. He whistled.
That was a close one. You're telling me?
Whispered the chest goblin as he crawled out again.
I almost got my leg chopped off by the lid.
Nitbit wandered over to a large bed in the corner, taking off his helmet once more and rubbing his ear.
That's it for me, boys. I ain't got enough energy to deal with this. Which one of you wants to mess around with a stinking ratty? I will.
The carpet goblin popped his head up again.
I want to stretch my legs a bit.
The tapestry gob helped him out of the hole before heading back to Nitbit. The big boss flopped down on the bed with his legs still armored. As he let exhaustion slowly claim him, he related his meeting with Beps and the promising bit of kit he'd been working on. The other goblins were taken aback by the discovery, but agreed to set aside talking about it until after the war, seeing as it would have little bearing on it. The chest goblin, standing over a table full of papers, was carefully eyeing a spread of diagrams.
We gotta go over the maps and figure out how old the gubs is gonna move about again. If there's one spy, there's 100 of them. We gotta make sure them scabbers don't know where the gubs is at before the fighting starts.
The tapestry goblin nodded.
Yeah, I think we need to move the trolls over to...
But Nitbit, or rather the goblin who had been playing the role of Nitbit that day, didn't catch the rest of it. The others would tell him what was what later. Right now, he needed some rest. Let someone else have a go at being the big boss for a while. Nitbit didn't feel the rest of his armor being taken off, or the blanket thrown over his body, including his head, just in case someone else barged in. By the time the new big boss left the chambers, garbed in the armor of special protectiness, the grot was fast asleep. That was Heavy is the Moon-Shaped Crown, inspired by the on-foot Loonboss model produced by Games Workshop for their game Age of Sigmar. I hoped you enjoyed the tale. This story marks the end of Da March to War, the first story arc in the ongoing narrative A Red Harvest. Outside of finishing the Loon Shrine as a centerpiece model, I'll be taking a break from painting Gloomspite Gitz as I focus on the next faction in the series, the Dastardly Skaven. There are plenty more Troggoths, Gitz, and Squigs to paint, however, and I'll be coming back to them periodically to slowly fill out a full Gloomspite Gitz army. As this is the last pen and paint video for the year, it offers a great opportunity to review the structure of the series and try to make it a bit more interesting. Expect to see changes with the next major pen and paint video set to release in January. As ever, if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, questions, or feedback on anything you've seen in this episode, please comment below. That's it for today. See you all next time.